Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Ruben Mercado. I'm a program manager here at SHIP, and I have the pleasure of introducing our presenter this evening, Ana Sofia Camacho. Ana partners with product leaders and teams to accelerate speed to value by improving maturity of the product operating model, building the operating systems to drive complex cross-functional collaboration, and driving enterprise value alignment and delivery. Ana Sofia is a principal product manager in enterprise delivery management at Target. Should have led off with. And Ana Sofia is a passionate public speaker and previously served as president of the Harvard Toastmasters chapter. She has built Toastmasters style speaking communities and workshops within her company and serves as an advisor for the Target Ship chapter. Ana Sofia is passionate about mentorship, community building, and helping professionals strengthen emotional intelligence, as well as finding their authentic leadership style and communicating with clarity and confidence. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ana Sofia. I will be here monitoring the chat. We'll get to some questions a little bit later on, so be engaged and be thinking of what you want to talk over and ask later. So thank you so much, Ana Sofia, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ruben. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking time out of your evenings to join our Ready, Set, Acción series. As Ruben gave an update, I'm very, originally from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. Have lived in Boston for the last 17 years and have been in the SHIP organization for close to 15 years now, lifetime member. And I'm just incredibly passionate about building your executive presence, but doing so in a way that's memorable and authentic to you, which I think is the most important. So very excited to talk about that to all of you today. If you were able to join our part one session, 2 weeks ago, we talked about two aspects of Ready, Set, Acción. The first one is you directing your own career, playing the role of a director, thinking of your story and how it's already being told. All of you are in different points of your career, and that's a story that's already in action. So if you're not intentional as a director about thinking what direction you want to go into, what's your vision, it could really start maybe control. You are more up to being controlled by how you're reacting to things versus how you're being intentional. We also talked about your value, how to make your value clear and is easy, the types of movie pitches you have, for your career and how to adapt them to different audiences. And we also said one message doesn't fit all the audiences. So being adaptable and flexible to it, and then being aware of the circumstances around you as you navigate all those career changes. And then also being aware of your crew. A movie is not made only by a director. You need the people that help you execute your vision, and that's your network. Those are the people around you supporting you and helping you. So we really talked about a lot of those angles, and now I'm really excited to dive into part two with all of you, because now we're going into the action. Part one is directing and the intention. Part two is about the action. So here, although you think of your career playing two roles, last week was 2 weeks ago was directing, and now we're going to talk about how do you take action. And in a movie, in your movie of your career, you want to be in the lead role. And sometimes it may come with the realization in this meeting that you're saying, well, actually, am I taking the lead role? Am I being intentional and taking action? Are there things I'm doing today? And how do I show up with that intention? And how do I adapt in real time as well? So very excited to talk through that today. So let's go ahead and dive in. So here you are with me. I talk about movies because that's frankly the way that I think about and remember these things. Everything I talk about today will not be the first or the last time you hear about it. But what I hope to do today is share it with you in a way that will be memorable and that you can adapt, because that's all that matters. You can read all the books, you can hear all the talks, but it's about remembering those key concepts in the moments that matter. So the first thing we'll talk about is casting your film. You are not, just like you're not directing and making your own film, when you're acting, you're not the only one in the scene. There's a lot of elements of how you do a scene and act out. Who is in the lead role? Who's carrying the weight of the script, the dialogue? And who is accompanying you in those lead roles? When you have a movie, it's not just a single person. I mean, sometimes there's those types of movies, but your career is not a solo one-person shot. There are people in there with you, and some of them are co-lead actors. They're taking intentional, a lot of a heavy part in the movie and the career. Some of them are supporting cast. Think of, the best friend, the family. These are side characters that they're not within your career 24/7 with you, but they come in and out. And others are background characters, extras. Think of a scene in an airport. You might hear the core group talking, but there's going to be people in the background that you still need for the scene. But they're not playing a big role in that. And the reason I say this is because when you think of your career, not everyone in your life should have the same role. So what do I mean by that? Think of it as who gets your energy, who are you featuring in your movie? Remember, you're the director. So one is stepping in and acting as the lead character. How many times have you heard main character energy? Are you acting as the main character? A lot of that is your confidence. You know, when you are in a meeting, when you are at work every day, are you acting as a main character? And the other thing is, who gets your energy around you? And I'll give you an example. When you think of the lead roles, those should be the people that you are investing your time and energy, you share openly, you act on their feedback. If you go to a meeting today and you hear feedback from 10 people, are you putting the same weight to all the feedback? You received 10 comments. Who did they come from? Is it someone that has seen you only once? Someone that is invested in your journey, someone that knows your goals, someone that's your manager? Is it your peer? Is it a leader? You adapt different weight to that. So you're shaping the direction. So when you put someone in the lead role, sometimes it means that you might be putting a lot of weight into how you're treating your interactions with them. You might be putting a lot of energy. And what I ask you to be intentional about is, do they deserve it? And one of the realizations in your career sometimes is, hey, are you surrounding yourself by people that you're treating as lead roles in your career? You're giving them a lot of importance and a lot of weight, but there's maybe not the right intent. Are they the person that's going to help advance your career? And keep in mind, it doesn't always have to be leaders. It could be your peers. It could be your family. But all I'm saying is, how do you weigh what they say versus other things? Because if there's someone that's a peer, or someone that you're maybe competitive with, or someone that you're trying to advocate for, just be mindful of that, because that does adjust how you take into account how they interact with you and how much time you invest in them as a lead character. The other one is a supporting cast. These are the people that you're collaborating with, that are supporting you. You maintain boundaries. Is it a peer? Is it a coworker you have in another department? Is it a friend you have from a previous job that you had and you're no longer in the same company, but you still continue to share learnings with each other? There's someone that's rooting you on and stays aligned on your goal and supports you. But again, different intention. When you meet with your mentors, I think that's someone that you put almost in a lead role. Your mentors, your guidance, these are people that are advocating for you, and you want to give importance to how they work with you. You want to come prepared to the scene. You want to make sure you're prepared and you're listening to what they say, and then you react. Supporting role, again, you come in and out. Those are your friends, that's your network. Maybe part of your network is people you meet with less regularly. Maybe you connect with a coworker or an old friend once a quarter, once a year. Maybe that's enough. They don't have to be a lead character in your career, but they can be supporting. They can come in and out. They could be, if you're thinking of a movie series, maybe they're in 1 and 3, but not 2. And the most important one, I think, my biggest aha moment, is background characters, because those are the people that have less exposure. You filter their input. So again, I've said, if I receive comments from everyone on this call after this, how am I filtering who it came from? And was it intentional? And sometimes you do want to hear feedback from strangers, but other times you're like, well, you know what? It was someone that saw me in that one moment. They don't know everything about me. If they said I did a bad job, like, great, I'll take that into account and I'll improve it. But they only saw one moment of me, not everything. And you know what? That was a bad day. That's okay. I say this being intentional, especially when it's constructive criticism. It's always hard to take, and you're going to get negative feedback and you're going to get constructive criticism, and you're going to have to be very careful of how you navigate that. And a lot of it is who it comes from and what context did they have about me and what intention was behind it. So very important, as you're assessing the people around you and your network, be intentional, because sometimes you might demote people. Maybe there was something you were treating as a lead role, and maybe you need to make them a background or an extra. Maybe there were people that you said, oh, they're background characters, and actually they provide a lot of insight. I'm going to make them a supporting cast, or I'm going to make them a lead role. So be curious, remain curious, because there might be people out there that you're not considering as, potential input or helpful or insight into how you want to grow your career, that you might be missing out on. So again, be intentional about that, about the people you surround yourself with and how you treat them and how you treat what they give to you. You're going to go crazy if it's, oh my gosh, thank you, all the people I care about gave me great feedback, but this one person gave me bad feedback. What did you hear? The one bad commentary. That was an extra. Why'd you give them the lead role? You just got all the people that know you, that know your journey, gave you great feedback, but you got one bad commentary. Who was it? And if it was an extra, it was an extra. Dismiss it. So just think about that as you navigate input and criticism and growth opportunities, because we're never going to be perfect. So when you do get that constructive criticism, how do you want to adjust the altitude at which you're processing it? So that's the first element. The next moment is moments. When you watch a movie, there's a start, a middle, and an end. So every story has different moments. Not all the highs stay at high, and not all the lows stay at low. And not every moment in your career will look the same. So even when you take time out of tonight to listen to this workshop, I ask you, are you coming at it from a good day, from a bad day? Are you tired? We're not all perfect. And your career is a lengthy movie, and not every part of the movie is memorable. So just always be mindful whenever you had a meeting when there was a good learning. Some moments are about learning. When you mess up, that's your highest learning moments. If you never went through an adversity or a hard moment, you would learn nothing out. You just continue leading and acting the way you do because that has worked up until this moment. But when you fail, that's not a setback. That's just saying, I'm going to adjust, I'm going to learn from it. And now that's pivoted the way I approach a scene differently. Some moments, maybe you're in the learning curve. You're going up that hill. You're in your learning path. Maybe you stepped into a new role. I'm in my learning journey. That means I'm going to make more mistakes. I'm going to feel more uncomfortable because it's more ambiguous. You're no longer the expert. You might have been an expert in your previous role, but you're stepping into a new role. So this is the learning path. The other one is maybe you're working towards your next role. So you really want to work on your branding and your visibility and your value narrative because you're trying to build a case and grow into this next role, or you're exposing yourself, or you're developing your strengths. So again, think of that because sometimes when we think about our career, we either romanticize the wins and we just keep focusing on the wins and saying, well, I'm not in a winning moment, or we focus on the negatives. I'm in my losing moment. And like none of them are bad, but they're going to fluctuate. And I think that sometimes we forget that, and our expectations tend to be, well, am I winning right now or am I losing? And there's the middle ground too, and that's okay. And guess what? You might have a really good moment, but the next week we're all human. That's going to change. So it's important to just remember not every moment is the same. So one question I want you to ask yourself today is, after this meeting, ask it during this session, where are you in your movie, in your career? I think that when I look at these movie scenes, you'll notice some of them are horror. Some of them are the most romantic moment, or the most adventurous moment, or the most exciting moment. Some of them are musicals. Maybe it was the most, like, the big number. And others are meaningful conversations and more quiet moments. The reason we want to think about where we are is because we want to acknowledge that it's going to change and it's not going to look like the same. And that's more for how you manage your own career expectations. It's not always going to be really good, and it's not always going to be really bad. And some days it's just going to be okay. And that's okay as well. And this is important to think about because you also want to understand, when are you in a hard moment? So when you think of movies, and you'll see examples of scene, if you want Mulan, Rocky, if you want a Star Wars movie, if you want Karate Kid, what's unique about these is that they have a training montage. So if you look at the plot diagram, that is the core plot diagram of a film. You have your exposition. Who are the characters? Oh no, there's a conflict. Oh, how are we preparing for that conflict? Oh, what happens? The climax. How did we resolve that? And then we get to the conclusion. One might think, oh, my career is just one big moment, that one big promotion, or that one big presentation I give. That you're going through this over and over. So your career is not a single movie. It's different stages of a movie. You could even think about it as part one, part two, part three. It's seasons of your life. It's seasons of your career. So that means you're going to go up and down. But what I'll tell you, and I hope it helps, is that sometimes when I'm in a difficult part of my career, let's define difficult. I'm frustrated. I was working towards a career growth opportunity and something changed, or there was a reorg, or my manager left. Sometimes when people that you work closely with leave, it feels like you have to start over. You're like, oh man, they had so much context. They knew so much about me. And like that just threw off my progression. Or your manager leaves and now you have a new manager assigned. And you're like, oh no, what happened with where we left off in the conversations? Or sometimes you're saying, I'm working towards that role. They just told me, I could expect it this year. I just went through my performance review. It's not possible. They're saying I'm not ready. So what I do is I think of a training montage. And this is that moment in movies of like that 1 to 2 minutes where they show you a little montage of different scenes of how they're working out. And I think of the Rocky one because that's the easiest one. He was literally training. He was training, and it didn't happen from day to night. You're seeing him waking up in the mornings. You're seeing him run. You're seeing how he progressed. So sometimes when you're in those moments, I just tell myself, I'm in the training montage moment. Oh, that's okay. Now, if you're like me, mine is Legally Blonde. I love Legally Blonde because she fails in classes. And her little training montage is studying. So it doesn't always have to be physical. It could be learning a new skill. It could be preparing for a big meeting. But when you're in the training montage, it just helps your mindset adapt to saying, I'm about to lock in and I need to be focused, and I'm in that moment. I'm in the working hard moment. It's supposed to feel tiring. I'm supposed to feel exhausted and uncomfortable. I'm supposed to feel out of my comfort zone because I'm in the training montage. I'm only going to get better, and it's to serve a purpose. Now, what you want to be careful is that you want to know what the end goal is of that training montage. So you don't want to be stuck in a cycle. In our last session, we talked about different roles we play, and sometimes we're a critic. So yes, it's great if you're very focused and judgmental on like, what do I need to improve? But you got to remember that you got to celebrate the incremental progress. And that's why the training mantra is important. Do I want to get stronger? And if it means stronger, I'm not going to be continuously critical about myself. I'm going to try to understand my goal is to run, and Rocky, he was like, when he got up those stairs at the end of it, it's like he knew he made it because he had been struggling those steps. That's a very physical example. If you watch Legally Blonde, it was for a test and for a class. So what is it? Are you working towards a role? Are you working towards developing a skill? And then how do you reward yourself? So you're not only stuck in a training montage moment, you're also being aware of what it is you're working towards, recognizing when you're in that moment, and understanding this is the uncomfortable part. And you know what? It's fun because they sped it up. A movie, you have the luxury. They sped up maybe like weeks of training into 1 to 2 minutes. So when you're in that, okay, it takes time, but you're in the training montage. So embrace your training montage moment, because I think that those are the parts of our life and our career that we don't romanticize enough. We hate them because they're uncomfortable. And when you put that montage moment, you're just like, oh, that's okay. I'm literally in the rising action moment. If you look at this image, it's when the flame is there. It's uncomfortable, but you're growing and you're challenging yourself. And then you're going to have a climax and you're going to recover. And then you're going to rest. And you're going to get more energy to do it again. So remember to embrace that moment. Now, my next question to you is, what costume are you wearing? How are we approaching this moment? Because one of it is the mindset. How are you approaching it? Understanding what moment in the movie you're in, and then you say, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to assess my lead roles. Who is a co-lead with me? Who's supporting? Whose background? What point in the movie am I in? And then I'm going to ask you now, look around and look at yourself. What costume am I wearing? And I know we say movie costumes sound exaggerated, but what I want you to think about is the fact that these costumes are intentional. They send a message. And costumes, we tend to think about like, you have this Marie Antoinette, you're like a period piece. Yes, if I'm doing if I'm in Versailles and in France, a costume, like, duh, I would expect a big skirt. But a costume can be as important as an accessory. Indiana Jones, what was the most recognizable thing about him? A hat. So it doesn't have to be big. It could be as small as an accessory. It could be as small as a prop. And the reason you want to think about this is you want to think about how you're being intentional about what you wear, because that helps you to get into character. You're the main character. What makes you feel good? What do you need to feel good? Sometimes they say, dress for the job you want, not the one you have. Or if you think about an interview, when you're going to interview for something, or even working remotely, what am I wearing? How am I getting into my character? And what am I using for that? Because it is more than a look. Costumes are not just for how others see you, it's how you show up for yourself. So one of the things is, think about how you're seen and how you want to be perceived. If you're going into work, watch where, and some corporate, depending on what industry you're in, people dress differently, but just be aware. If you admire someone and the way they present, say, what are they wearing? Is it the way they present themselves? Because unfortunately, costumes do have an impact, and how you are shown, how you're showing yourself is important. And that means, what do I need to be perceived in the way I want to be perceived? And what do I need to feel it? And some of that, sometimes when I work from home, they say, are you, in sweatpants, do you want to be comfortable because comfort will help you focus? Or do you need to wear shoes, even though you're working from home, and work pants, because that will help you feel more polished and ready, and it will help you get into the mindset. It is how you feel. I have an example of that. So when I first got my first job, I always dreamed about a specific perfume that I wanted. And I dreamed about it, and I bought it with my first paycheck, and it was very exciting. And I only wear it for work, because in my head, when I smelled it, it would help me focus and remember, like, I'm really excited about this. I earned this. And that was a scent I only wore for work. And again, it's part of my costume, because it's something that's reminding me. It could be a watch, it could be earrings, it could be a belt, like, or your favorite shoes, socks. What are the elements in your day that help you feel more focused or help you feel more empowered? Because that is not just your costume, that's your armor. You are wearing an armor. Every day you go into work, you're preparing for a main character. You're preparing to be a lead role, and you want to show up that way. And unconsciously, psychologically, our confidence is a big component of that. And sometimes it's what you tell yourself, and others is what you feel. And I think that thinking about what you wear and what you use in your day-to-day as an armor helps you, because every morning you're preparing for that. How are you facing your day from the moment, even before you get to work? How are you getting ready for work? What helps you get in the right mindset? And then being reserving it. Maybe it's not for every day, because look, we're all human. We're tired sometimes. I don't always have a best day. But if you have an important meeting, if you have important moments where you want to show up a certain way, how do you save moments for that? So I gave the example of a perfume. That was something I used every day. But maybe there's these shoes that I like, or there's this outfit that I really like, or a shirt. It could be as simple as that, as an accessory that you want to save for those big moments. I also believe in classical conditioning. So, what are things that you save for those moments that when you wear them, they make them feel extra special? Because again, sometimes we have to romanticize life a little bit. We have to make it fun. It's not going to change its work, but when you add little moments like armor and things that make you feel better, you get excited about it. And you want to be excited about those moments, because the difference between excitement and nerves is very little. And you can trick your brain to think, am I nervous or am I excited? Your body's reacting the same way. The butterflies are there no matter what. But if you think excitement, you're already approaching it from a positive mindset. You look forward to it. Did I save this outfit that I wanted to save? Did I buy a new outfit for it? There's a lot of psychology behind it. So again, empower yourself. Think of your armor. And if you don't know what that is okay. Because that just means that maybe that's not the right armor. It could be an accessory. If you are someone that fidgets, is there something on your desk that you fidget with? Even if you need a stress ball, that's your armor. In meetings, that's difficult. I had, this is going to sound silly, but sometimes when I go through hard moments, sometimes it's emotional. And I would have hard meetings, and I would feel like I would be nervous to cry easily, because my emotions, I'm like, oh, I don't want to cry. And it's hard, because what if you receive hard feedback? There are a lot of emotions. And I had a manager who told me, grab a pen or a pen cap and just step at it. It's like you're distracting yourself. You're physically distracting yourself. You don't want to hurt yourself. But there was something that by touching something while I was talking, it distracted my body. And I realized that I would catch myself not get it. Almost, it helped me control my emotions, especially for those difficult moments when you're navigating conflict, be a debate, or receiving constructive criticism that might be a little challenging, or receiving bad feedback. You're not going to get that career progression. It's hard, and it can get emotional. So sometimes your armor might be a fidget or something that you're holding on to distract your body, because something as little as that can help snap you out of it a little bit and remind your body that it's not just your brain. There's physical touch to help ground you. So don't take those things for granted. It could be as simple as a pen. All I'm doing is I'm grabbing this pen, I'm doing this to it, but it is grounding me, because I'm getting out of my head and how I'm reacting, and I'm grounding myself physically and where I am, so that I can be more intentional of how I respond and how I want to show up in response. Just to say that, emotions are a part of it. The other thing to think about is music. What's your soundtrack? When I look at these movie posters, all of them stand out to me for different reasons. And also, all soundtracks lead to different emotions. The fact that when you think of Jaws, you think of the music, how fear came. You didn't even see the shark yet, but you could hear the music and you're already nervous. When I look at Titanic, you hear My Heart Will Go On. You're like, oh my God, romantic, epic, love story. Star Wars, you can only hear the initial notes of it, and you're like, wow, that already gets me very excited. Interstellar, I see it when you like, all of these have meaningful moments, and they have different emotions. Pirates of the Caribbean, that just feels like an adventure already. And what's meaningful about it is that in that soundtrack, they wanted us to feel something. As we were watching this, part of it was seeing it, but I don't know if you've ever seen TikToks or YouTube videos. If you ever try to watch a movie on mute, it would have a very different emotion than if you had the music. And I'm not even thinking like songs and soundtracks with lyrics and well-known songs. I'm thinking the musical score. If you just saw Jaws and you weren't hearing the music before the shark comes up, you're just looking at water. There's nothing's building that tension. Same, you're looking at a fight, and Pirates of the Caribbean, they're fighting and they're sword fighting. You're like, oh, that's exciting, yes. But the music added to it, it heightened it. So really, music helps shape how we feel, and it could actually get a reaction out of the moment and the interaction before we're even aware of what could happen. My favorite is horror movies. In horror movies, Nothing has happened yet, but it's already built up because the music. It starts building the tension and the slowness. So all of that is to speak. There is a lot of power in soundtracks and movie scores and music. And I want us to think about that power and how intentional it is. So let's go into an example of that. Controlling the soundtrack. What you listen to. First is intake. You want to be intentional about what you're listening to. And it can range. So an example of that is early on in my career, I was very intentional about TED Talks. Every morning while I was getting ready, I'd listen to a TED Talk. And I was like, great, I'm being intentional, I'm getting the right mindset. But then eventually, you know what happened? I got tired. I got very overwhelmed because, oh my goodness, every morning was a TED Talk. Every morning I was consuming, you should do this, you should do that, you should do. And then if you think about it every day, I was like, that's great, I'm motivated, but now I'm overwhelmed. Now I'm overcorrecting. I'm turning into a critic for myself because I'm saying, look at all the things I should be thinking about. And I'm not, and I'm tired. And sometimes, you know what? I just want to listen to music, or I just want to listen to like a podcast that's funny. So it's, think about being intentional, but also don't overwhelm yourself, because that's going to be something that's going to influence you. And you want to be intentional and aware of it, but you also, you want to know when you need to recover. Again, training montage. If you're in the training montage, maybe you want to consume TED Talks. Maybe you want to be more because you're in the zone. You are literally working through the hard part. But then after you had a big moment, maybe you want to calm down and celebrate it. So then maybe you just want to listen to a fun podcast of a topic that you want that's not even related to work. I love listening to Amy Poehler's podcast. She's interviewing celebrities. I'm just like, you know what? This is delightful. That was a fun conversation. Did I learn new things? Maybe, maybe not, but that's okay, because I was trying to just relax my brain. So the reason I said is don't overwhelm yourself, because sometimes we are so critical and so ambitious that then we overcorrect. Then we say training montage always. And as I said, the training montage starts and ends. And maybe you're the type of person that says, you know what, I can always hear it. I can always read a book. I can always listen to an audiobook in the evenings. And it's like, that's perfectly fine. But just remember to listen to your body. And when, if it's a good moment to also ingest everything that you're consuming. The other thing is what you tell yourself. The internal monologue is incredibly important. In the first session, we talked about being a director. When we talk about being a director, it's important because you are telling yourself a story, but that could also be a trap. Because again, if remember what I said, you got 10 pieces of feedback. These 9 pieces of feedback were great, and they're from the people you were teaching, you were treating as lead and supporting characters. But then one background actor, one extra gave you a bad piece of feedback, and you only focus on this one. That is an example of how what you're telling yourself. I ignored these 9 pieces of feedback that were great, but then this person said they didn't really like it, and I now I'm obsessing over it. And guess what? Now it's impacting my confidence, because now I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I wasn't good. But you think, what about these other 9 people? They were the target audience, and this person just happened to listen in. And you know, it's not always like that. I'm not saying dismiss negative feedback, but just make sure you do a gut check. And then also, when you receive constructive criticism, don't let it be the only thing that consumes you, because then that's all you're going to be playing to yourself. Every morning, you say, maybe I'm sad, but what tomorrow, I better now be ready to take action. Because if you're just stuck replaying those hard conversations or those hard moments, you're not moving. You're actually paralyzed. You're paralyzed listening to the same playlist. You are listening to a sad movie score. And guess what? You're going to get sad. Why? Because it's emotional and it's very heightened. So it's like, well, guess what? It's going to get that reaction. So just like that, be sure that if you feel, but also it's valid, feel the sadness. If you went through something hard, go through it, process it, but then also remember, you want to snap out of it at a certain point, or else you're going to be stuck in that cycle. And that's why it's important to think about who you surround yourself with, because guess what? A soundtrack is not just music. A soundtrack is actually words. When I think about the people around you, what are they sharing? Am I surrounding myself with people who are only critical of me? And is it being critical for the right reasons? Or am I surrounded by people who only tell me what I want to hear? Yes, everything's amazing. Yes, you're perfect. Oh my God, we loved it. We loved it. We loved it. Love that for you, but we're not all amazing. And are we challenging ourselves? Great. Maybe you developed the skill so well that you are the best, but do you want to be the best in the room? Or do you want to look for another room where there's areas to grow? So you want to be mindful and you want to balance it, because I think that sometimes our comfort zone is to steer towards what we want to hear, what we want people to tell us about. And other times we might say, no, I want constructive criticism. I'm just going to surround myself with like feedback, things that I need to improve. Guess what? Those are 2 ends of the spectrum. You can't live in those ends of the spectrum 24/7. That is exhausting. You're gonna burn yourself out. And it's not even external. You're burning yourself out just with your internal brain and what you're processing. And the other thing is how you prepare. What's the impact towards that? When you're preparing, you're going to be so drained. If your battery and your energy is being just used up by people that should be background or extras, or by a mental model that is draining you, that takes away your energy and your confidence. That is impacting your armor. That's impacting how you see yourself, how you put yourself together. And guess what? That's a movie that's already playing. That's what we covered in the first session. Your movie's already playing. People are already watching your film. So you are already being perceived one way or another. And that's why we want to be intentional. But we also want to be authentic. I don't want you to feel like you need to act. Because one of the earliest things in my career that I think was an aha moment is that I came in trying to emulate people. And in trying to emulate others, it just felt so inauthentic to me. And I realized, oh, maybe that's not the way I would have done it. Maybe I would have approached, even look at this presentation. I'm telling you things that you heard before, but the difference is I'm telling them to you in a way that resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with others, but that's the way I do storytelling. I want to make it relatable. I want to give it through examples and analogies. So that is a huge and important part of that too. Okay, so we talked about your soundtrack. So again, think about what you're surrounding yourselves with and be intentional. So I'll give you an example. And I don't know if you want to take this away, but I am very intentional about my playlists. And I'll give you an example. I've been to many SHIP conventions. I've been in SHIP as since I was a student and then a professional. This is silly, but every time I went to a convention, I would pick a song. And it could be a song that was playing and it was popular. It could be a song that I listened to a lot in the morning. But I'd say this song is going to remind me of this moment. And I put on the playlist. And throughout the years, I kept adding songs. And now whenever I listen to it, it's almost like I condition myself. When you think of the psychology, Pavlov's conditioning, it was the dog would salivate every time he heard the bell because the trainer would ring the bell and then they give him food, ring the bell, give him food. So eventually he would just salivate by hearing the bell. There's a lot of power in how you leverage music and your armor as well, physical things. And what I mean by that is that's an intentional one. I also had a Get in the Zone playlist. If I need to focus, I know I can't listen to music with lyrics. Why? Because I'm going to be distracted. I'm going to want to sing along. So if I need to really focus, I ironically listen to movie scores. But I was being intentional. That is my playlist I'm going to listen to because I need to lock in. And when I was in college, what I do is I'd always start when I was very stressed, and think of this the night before your test, the night before a presentation, I would listen to one song on loop. Because what I was trying to tell my brain is whenever you're the most stressed, that's when I'm the most focused. I know myself. I work well under pressure. Some people work best when they have a lot of lead time and they have a lot of time to work through it. I work best when it's right close to the finish line. I have 20 hours left. That's when I'm the most productive. That's okay. You've learned how you work. But what I do is I'd listen to that song. So next time I needed to get focused, I needed to get in the zone, I'd start playing that song. And part of my brain would already be conditioned to be like, okay, lock in. And I do it with emotion. Sometimes I have playlists of songs that make me very happy and motivate me. Again, if you're going to enter your training montage, what are songs that motivate you so that you enjoy this a little more? And I think it's very important that we adjust our mindset because it's not always going to be fun. Ambiguity and learning, it's uncomfortable because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. So what are things you could do to make it a little bit more enjoyable, either in what you wear, what armor, what things you have around yourself, what props you have that motivate you, and also what music you listen to, because you have to find some things that delight you. When you're about to work, maybe work-life balance is important, but maybe you're going to work a little bit later tonight. Can you buy yourself a treat or a candy you like, or maybe a soda if you don't have it, like something to just help you feel better about it, because you have to think about and embrace it because it's going to be there no matter what. So the mindset is a huge adjustment. The other thing I like to think about is recognition. I think this is one of the most important topics that we don't actively talk about in our career. And what do I mean by that? You are a director and your career is your movie. Just think about a movie in general. What do you want out of it? If you look at these images, we have the clapping. You want admiration from the people. Which people? Is it your family and loved ones? Is it your peers? Is it from strangers? Or do you want to be influential? Look at a fandom. Do you want to influence and drive an impact beyond the people you know? I don't know everyone in this crowd, but you've made an impact because Marvel and all those things, that's people want to dress up like that, but people want to influence. That's you wanting to influence and impact beyond the people and beyond the time in which they watched the movie and got out of the movie. The other one is social media. I think that's very important because I think of, do you want to be a trending topic? Is it popularity that drives you? Is it wanting to be the topic that comes up in meetings? Think about it as recognition. Oh my gosh, good job, Ana Sofia. Good job, Ana Sofia. That's recognition. Is it someone validating you? And then how frequently? because that's the other thing. You might not notice how frequently you're seeking out that validation and who you're giving it, which one's important. The other one is reviews. What did people think about it? And think of this in your intentional moments in big meetings. Rotten Tomatoes, every movie has a score, and you'll notice that there's two scores. There's a score from the critics, the subject matter experts, and there's scores from the audience. I didn't know a lot about it, but I still enjoyed it. How many times do you go for a movie and you're like, oh my goodness, what are they going to, they're going to do, where they're going to redo Harry Potter. HBO is going to redo the Harry Potter series, movies into series. I'm an expert in Harry Potter. I read all the books growing up. I know this story very well. I'm going to be very critical of it. Or you're going to say, you know what? My family, my kids, they haven't seen Harry Potter. I'm so excited that they're going to be reintroduced to it. They don't know anything about it. Even something as little as that, when you go and watch a movie, did you read the book? Do you know the story beforehand or do you not? That's already two different approaches. And who do you want to impress? Is this for the people who are so proud of you because, oh my gosh, the movie was just like the book. They did such a good job. Or you know what? The movie was so different from the book. That's already two different reactions. But do you know what's intentional? It's like that is your subject matter expert. So when you have your surrounding audience and you think of like, where do I want recognition? Do I want recognition from the subject matter experts because they know how complex the situation is that you're working on, the topic that you're covering, the area in which you're an expert, and you want them to feel like they understood it? Are you seeking their validation? Or are you seeking the validation of the strangers? Because again, if we go back to my example of 10 pieces of feedback, if I were to analyze who was this person that gave the negative feedback, was it someone that understood the series or didn't? Had they never even seen it? Okay, well, if your presentation that they witnessed and that they, at that moment in which they interacted with you and gave you that negative feedback, maybe you were talking about, and I'm sorry I keep going back to Harry Potter, but like maybe it's Harry Potter 5 and they hadn't seen 1 through 4. So they come in being very critical and they're like, well, that was a weird movie. And you want to be like, appreciate it, but did you watch 1 through 4? Because everyone else in the crowd had seen every single one. They had all that context. And I know it's a silly example, but sometimes when you're in a meeting room and you hear feedback and criticism, some of the people have not been part of the journey. They don't have all the context you have. They weren't in the previous 8 meetings before. And the reason I say this is because sometimes we unconsciously get defensive. Think about it. You're in a meeting and you give a presentation and you get a lot of questions. What did we immediately assume? Are they asking questions because they didn't understand it? Or because I didn't explain it well enough? Or is it because they're being critical of it? They don't agree with it. All of that is different moments because all those people are asking that question from a different point. Maybe that person, this is the first meeting they joined, so that they might be asking you a basic question, but it's literally out of curiosity. Other people might be subject matter experts, and maybe they're asking because they want to validate, did you think about this? I want to make sure I'm qualifying whether you went through all the necessary steps. So there's intent for questions, but the reason I say this is because you want to understand where is it coming from? How do I feature them? And what context do they have? Are they experts or are they first-time viewers? And what was your intent of this meeting? Was the meeting and the presentation I just gave something intended for anyone to pick up easily? Because if so, you do want that audience member that doesn't have any context to feel like it was a good meeting. Or was it just something designated for subject matter experts with a lot of experience and a lot of context and they had to do the pre-work and go to the 3 meetings before? Then that's different. But now you're assessing how you're receiving things and who they come from. And you're also deciding what is more important. And I say recognition because that is how you're weighing things. And that is how you're weighing the energy you give to your reaction and what you're going to do next. The other thing is, what do you want out of it? When you think recognition for movies, I think that we go directly to Oscars, awards. Who won the Oscar for Best Picture? And I think, are you a director that the end goal is winning an Oscar? Then you're going to go very differently about it. You're going to build your movie. You're going to make sure there's a marketing campaign. Did you know that to be an Oscar nominee, you have to go through a very specific marketing campaign for the Oscars? No one had told you that. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I thought that I just had to release my movie and the audience had to like it. And I didn't invest any time in doing my specific marketing campaign to go to the Oscars because no one told me that. And if I didn't know that, oh my gosh, I should have hired a marketing team. Back to Who's Your Crew. I should have made sure I had a marketing team and someone who could help me on my strategy to make sure I'm on my way to get an Oscar. But if you weren't intentional about that goal, that means that the moment you were thinking about your movie and building it, you were missing opportunities to go work towards that. Or if at the end of the year you say, I wasn't nominated for an Oscar, why? Did you even know you had to go through the process? Did you even put yourself in the realm of like, that was a possibility? That is your career. If you want a promotion, You want to be vocal. You want to start early. It doesn't start the moment award season. When the Oscars are tonight and we're in the ceremony, that's not the moment you're saying, guys, I really want an Oscar. Did you know you don't do it at the ceremony. You don't do it 2 weeks before this, because guess what? Nominations for the ceremony closed 6 months ago. Then there was the voting period, and then there was the ceremony. So I think that sometimes in our careers, we tend to think about what we want when you have your annual performance review. And by then it's too late. Because before that, there were already a lot of motions that went into everything has cycles. Every year, every company has their own cycles of when they're considering promotions. There's budgeting conversations, and everything happens different. I'm not saying it's always in the same order, but what I'm telling you is that if your goal is a promotion, it doesn't start when you're having your annual performance review. And if that's the first time they're hearing about your goals, you're not doing it right. You want to be intentional. You want to bring it up regularly. If you're not having career development conversations with your manager, be explicit. I'm going to set up a quarterly meeting once an hour every quarter. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about my career. Maybe there's no action we're going to take because our annual performance review is 2 quarters from now, but I want to start planting a seed. And that's the important. You want to think about it. How are you planting a seed towards your recognition? But what did that take? That took me being intentional and saying, I want an Oscar. Or maybe you say, I don't want an Oscar. Actually, I care about the critics. So again, is my goal, if I'm happy with just that critic gave me 5 stars, it's this critic who's the expert in this. I want to be the expert, and the top expert said that I had a good film. That's the thing that matters for me. Or it's film festivals. I actually don't care about the Oscars, but I want to go to this very specific film festival. Look at how many film festivals are. You know why? Because there's different. There are film festivals for horror. There's the Cannes Film Festival. There's the film festivals that are very recognized. There are those that are more niche. Maybe you don't want that. And why is that important? Because think about your career and recognition. Let's talk about it. Is it the title? Is it when you say you want a promotion, what do you want out of it exactly? Do you want the title because the title unlocks a new layer where like maybe you're going to be taken, Ana Sofia was a senior manager before, now she's a director. Oh, as a director, it now allows me to be part of these other meetings I wasn't a part of, and that's context I want. Do you want to be seen as a leader? Or do you care about, if I become a director, a senior director, or a VP, I want the portfolio, the ownership. I want to be a people manager. People manager? Are you doing it because you want the title? Or sometimes is it the compensation? A lot of this recognition we've talked about, but like maybe it's being fairly compensated. And sometimes the reason I want to challenge you to isolate, and it's okay, the answer might be everything, and that's okay. But the importance of that is you want to understand all the elements, because if you're right now at a point where you're saying, you know what, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated in my career. I want to work towards this promotion. You want to be very careful that you're understanding all the elements of a promotion, because sometimes if you care about certain things, they might say, you know what, budget is hard. Every company goes through highs and lows. We didn't have a lot of budget. We didn't have a lot of room for promotion, but we can give you a bonus. If your goal was being fairly compensated, that's still a win. Or if they say, you know what, there's no promotion, but we can start giving you additional high visibility projects that could give you that recognition and seat at the table. If you're driven by influence and impact, we're working towards a promotion. It's not there yet, but we can give you this new challenge or this new project that could help you develop the skill. And I'm saying this because there are incremental goals. You're not always going to get the package deal. And even when you get a promotion, it might not be the title you want, or it might be the title you want, but it wasn't the compensation you expected. Or it was the title you wanted, the compensation you expected, but the roles and responsibilities are not what you wanted. You don't get a team. Sometimes you might say, I want to grow and influence. There's individual contributor paths and there's leaders of people paths. And which one do you want? You can still grow in your impact and influence, but if you don't understand what drives you, that could actually take you down the wrong path. Maybe you think, oh, every leader in my company I see that they're a leader of people. They're a people manager. So therefore, I should be a people manager. Maybe that's what I need to do to get to VP. And you might say, oh, wait, there's a path to VP you could be an individual contributor. Maybe you could do all those things without having to manage a team. And sometimes I think that part of your growth is, do you like managing a team? Sometimes that there are elements of that, is it something that drives you? Because to get to that position, and do you need to do it? I think that there's a lot of senior influential, there's staff engineers, there's principal engineers. You could still get the level of leadership, compensation, role, but maybe the roles and responsibilities are more aligned with what you want. And I think that even that question, Do you want to grow into an individual contributor role, or do you want to go into people manager? Just ask yourselves the questions, because sometimes people go in a direction just because they think they have to. So that's why it's so important to define your recognition. You want to be intentional about how you want to be seen, but you don't want to put a lot of powers. I went through a phase where I cared a lot about external validation, meaning because it feels great. Oh my gosh, the CEO sent me a message, or like, oh my gosh, this VP sent me a message, good job. But you know what I was ignoring? I was ignoring how I was feeling about it. Did I tell myself I did a good job? Did I think I did a good job? And then what happened is that when that stopped, or when it went through a period where I wasn't getting as much recognition as I used to, I internalized that as if I wasn't doing a good job. But I felt less grounded because I was only depending on external. And it's balanced. You could get some external signals. You should always be seeking out external signals, but you don't want to overcorrect and only think about external signals, because internal signals are, do I think I'm being fairly compensated? Do I like the roles and responsibilities that I have in this role? If you don't, maybe that means I need to start a conversation of, what do I want to pursue? Is there a role that does have those? Is there one that doesn't? Or you're thinking, is it the title? Because I will tell you, one of the trickiest things is the title. So many people think that the title will give them everything they want in the role, and then they start analyzing the roles or responsibilities. They're like, oh my gosh, I think I just like calling myself a VP, but I don't like the work-life balance of a VP. And maybe that's not where I'm at in life. So that in itself is already an answer. So I think I just say this so that you want to make sure that you're taking a moment to say, what is important to me? And what am I going to treat importantly? And then how am I going to give the right, take the right steps to do it? And then recognize when I reach certain milestones. Recognize when you got that promotion. And maybe the promotion wasn't complete. Maybe it was the title, but not the compensation. Great. You got one done. You care about the title. Or what if you get a promotion that is the title, not the compensation? That might actually already tell you, oh, actually, I do care about compensation a lot. Okay, and maybe that role might be beyond your company. So there's a lot of elements to that you can think through, but it's just important that you define, and you don't, if you don't define your recognition, you're going to go down the wrong thing. So that's why I said the Oscars path. If you're only thinking about recognition and growth in your annual performance review, you're not doing it enough. And if it's uncomfortable, that's okay. You're not going to uncover an answer to everything. Sometimes you may say, oh, you know what? I don't care about compensation. I care about title, until you get that title and they say, actually, it's only a 2% increase. And you're like, oh, wait, that's a lot of responsibility. Or backwards, you get the title you wanted, but you don't like the roles and responsibilities. So again, you don't have to have every answer every time. Every time you go through a hardship or you get something, all you do is learn about something. Or sometimes you validate. Maybe you were telling yourself you did care about the title until you got it, and you're like, actually, it doesn't really matter. I don't need to go back. Maybe I want the individual contributor. I don't need to be VP. I don't need to work towards VP, because with that comes a work-life balance. With that role, that's why I'm saying roles and responsibilities is important, because do you want to be doing that? Are you fulfilled by that? Is it aligned with the type of impact you want to have and the type of recognition you want? And is that recognition, how much of that is all external? Because again, movies are dangerous. You don't want to put all the power on external things, because guess what? All of that is out of your control. You don't control when people tell you. And I think that one of the most important comments I've heard is, my ability to do a good job should not depend on people's ability to recognize that. Because sometimes you might be in an environment where people are chaotic, they don't have the time or the ability to recognize that, to give you that good feedback, to tell you. And you might have the mindset, oh my goodness, if no one's telling me I'm doing a good job, how will I know I'm doing a good job? Maybe you're in an environment that will only be critical, and they'll tell you, if you're doing a good job, we're not going to tell you. We're just going to assume you're doing a good job. You're only going to hear when you're doing a bad job. Being prepared for that is helpful, because then you know you're going in, okay, well, you might be able, hey, tell your manager. I remember I always tell my manager, hey, by the way, let me know when I did a good job on something. And not always, I'm not saying like great job every day, but like, hey, if I went above and beyond, or you thought something was real, let me know, because I'm someone that needs a balance. I like hearing the critical sides, but I also need to hear the good sides. Otherwise, I will start assuming of like, oh, is it all bad? So I also want to learn when I did something well. You want to learn your strengths. I used to do a workshop with my team where I'd say, it was a mirror exercise. I'd say, sometimes we know our strengths. We're very critical, but don't ever take for granted your peers, your coworkers. Ask them, hey, what do you think I'm really good at? Because you might be surprised at what they might say. They might say, actually, you're a great collaborator. You are great at presentation speak, or you know what? You're so great under pressure. You are very resourceful. Those are things you might be taking for granted, because when it's your strengths, it's easy for you. So you don't feel the effort. You're focused on the things that take effort because they're harder and you're learning them. But you take for granted the things that were so easy for you, but that doesn't mean they were easy for everyone. They were just easy for you because they were aligned to your strengths. So again, as we're winding down, I just want to say, after listening to this, you were already intentional in joining this session tonight. I want you to think about this, that as you act as your main character, take a step into your leading role. You're already doing that tonight. Remember, not every moment in your career is the same. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and there's going to be middles, and there's going to be training montages. You are human. Give yourself grace. Understand the scene where you are, and then from there, decide how you show up. Decide who shows up there with you and how you're giving your energy to those people. And growth doesn't always happen in moments that people see. Again, the training montage it took 3 months of training into a 1 minute of the movie. Don't take for granted your costume and your armor. Arm yourself with the things you need. Help yourself feel better. Romanticize those hard moments, because it's those little things like that that adjust our mindset. You have the power to influence your mindset and positivity. And also to be intentional about what recognition is. And it's a hard conversation. And again, you don't have to have it all figured out, but knowing what drives you, what really matters, will give you more control into how you influence and move towards those moments. So with that, I think I'm going to just say thank you for listening tonight. If there's any questions, Ruben, or we want to talk through anything, I hope that this series was helpful to just think about the different roles you play in your career and that you're excited to take action.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ana Sofia. That was incredible. I was active in the chat and taking notes over here myself. A lot of really important, helpful reminders. But yeah, as mentioned, we have time for questions. So I know everyone's been really engaged and on the whole time. So would love to hear from our audience any questions that you have just about anything that was covered this evening or last time as well. Feel free to hop on mic if you are able to.
Hi, I have a question.
Awesome.
So my name's Joanna, and I recently started, thank you. I recently started a new role. It's my first post-grad role, but I've also been helping out a lot of my little siblings and cousins, and even like mutual friends, like their siblings, because they're still in college. And one thing I've noticed across Latino community specifically is what you said about changing your mindset. Like that's such a big thing. And I definitely feel like I've gotten to that point where, yeah, like I have to look at everything in a positive way, because otherwise we're going to be stuck in that like critic mode. And there's someone I'm thinking of specifically who likes to bring up a lot of excuses as to why like they don't like to like focus on the people, because any type of team that we'll be in, there's going to be other people around. And so how do you think you can like drive home that message, or like put that in your own words? For context, because I was a business major and this person's an engineering major, and he keeps trying to say, he should only focus on like doing good in school, but I don't think that's all there is to get a career.
No, and I appreciate that, John. I think you touched on a lot of things. One is we take for granted that as Hispanics, the cultural side of it, it's uncomfortable to give yourself credit. And like when we talked about it, self-advocacy the last time, and I'm like, there's already a discomfort and something that feels hard about it. And when you have your peers, so again, you have people you're thinking about that their mindset is very locked in. So they're saying, you know what drives them? Like their recognition. They already answered that question for you. They told you it's education. It's all about education. It's not the workforce. I don't need to do that. Or like, it's all about your GPA. And guess what? When you were a student, when I was a student, that is all you heard. All you heard is you were defined by your GPA and the level of academia you were working towards. And that might be okay if that's what drives the person. But then you get to the workforce and you're like, oh my gosh, I had all these other strengths and all these other skills that didn't go into me taking a test and going through the courses. There were other elements that are important. So one thing I'd say, John, is first, assess their willingness to listen, because I would even ask, are you treating this person as a lead character, a supporting character, or should they be a background character? Because sometimes you're saying, how are you investing your energy? Because think about it. You are going out of your way to help, which is wonderful, because that is what we should be doing. We should be influencing younger people we can support. Are they ready to hear it? Because if they're at a stage in their life where they're saying academia is all that matters, I'm already in, and they're in the middle, you're gonna be like, you could give them the most beautiful speech, you could give them the most beautiful reason, and they wouldn't hear it because they're not ready to hear it until they go through their own learning. They're not in that training montage. And in fact, they want to be so critical that they might be paralyzed because what? They're more comfortable in the space they're in. They're saying, I know academia. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just recognizing, because sometimes part of that might be you might be exhausting a lot of your energy on someone that's not ready to hear it. And they've already made a decision to misunderstand you, then you're just going to be spinning your wheels trying to keep them positive when that's not intentional. So again, it's not saying give up, but I think that just for your energy, especially for someone that's trying to do good, that's why I literally had a slide of where do you invest your energy? Because there were so many moments where I'd say, no, I can change them. I can influence. You're amazing. And I'm sure you're saying a lot of good things. They might not be ready to hear them. And then guess what? They might not be ready until a couple years from now, until they go through their own learnings. And then maybe they get to that aha moment. So the first thing I'm telling you is give yourself grace, because sometimes you might already be saying the right things, but they might not be ready to say it. And that's your confidence. I want you to remain confident in yourself that you can do it, because you've influenced cousins, you've influenced friends of cousins. You're doing something good. And just because a person's not ready to hear it doesn't mean that you need to exhaust all your energy. Because again, that's the example of the 10 people. Here you have someone, 9 people heard you. Thank you so much, Joanna. Like that was so, and one person didn't. That's not defining how good you are at it. And maybe and again, maybe they didn't have all the context, and maybe they're not ready to hear all the context. So I appreciate your question, because I think it goes both ways, especially you, because I don't want you to use that as a way to say, what could I have been doing? You could always do things better. But I think the part we forget is when we get stuck in the mindset, we just take it as homework for us. And sometimes it's not homework for you. Sometimes it's you did what you did. They might go through the learning. And so I think about, did I have that? When I went through it, I didn't have that, and I still learned things. So it doesn't mean you're abandoning them, but I think that's very thoughtful. Does that help, John, or is there another element? Because I want to make sure we talk
No,
through
yeah,
it.
that's super helpful. And it really does, even thinking of my own journey, like I think I had that mindset for the longest time until I had my own aha moment. So I think sometimes things just have to take their course. But
And
yeah.
you have to let them have their learning. So again, highs and lows. People need to fall. Sometimes I use this analogy, but sometimes at work, and it's not, I'm not saying it's like but sometimes I think of like when you think of a toddler and they're walking around the house, you have to put child protection and corners of the table. So I'm just like, hey, don't hit the corner. Hey, don't hit the corner. And I cover it for them. And they keep hitting my hand. They hit the bump, they hit the corner, but I've never taught them how to look for the corner. So sometimes I know I'm like, you know what? They keep hitting that end of the table every day. And maybe I need to I can't, and I'm also exhausted. I have to do so many things, and I have like 10 toddlers. And I'm like, sometimes someone needs to hit their head at the corner of the table to learn to look for the corner in the future. And if they don't go through that, they might not realize they need to do it. And here you are holding all the corners. So it's a balance. And I think it's okay, but I think it's hard because you feel a responsibility. You want to help them, but you have to, toddlers fall. They have to trip, and then they won't learn to get up until they fall. And I think that just because I think that as a mentor, as guidance, as someone who's already advocated and done things, you have to learn when to let go, because otherwise they're never going to learn it, Joanna. They're always going to go to you to solve it. And that applies to work too. How many times are you picking it up in a way that you're almost your own bottleneck? So just be mindful, because I think what you're doing is great, and be confident in your own skills to do it. I don't think there's a lot you have to change. I would even challenge, were they hearing it? And yes, maybe there's ways you could have tried it, but if you've tried it 3 different ways and it hasn't resonated, that's okay. Maybe they're not ready to hear the message.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate the question.
We're right at about time, but I wanted to see if there was any other last questions or thoughts from anybody in the audience. Make sure to fill out our post-event survey as well. I think I heard someone chime in.
No, that was just me, Drew.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, if not, feel free to reach out. Want to say thank you again to Ana Sofia for just taking the time out of her busy schedule and just sharing all this valuable information. We were recording, so we'll share this out as well. Again, please make sure to fill out our survey so we can plan for future events. And thank you everyone for being here. This was wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.